Today is lesson 4, solving equations, and this is an exciting day in algebra because solving equations in many ways is the root of what we do. So let's just take a look at example 1 so we know what we're talking about when we say solve an equation. We have an unknown here, and we have an equal sign, so that's new. Up until today, everything we've done has been just an expression, no equal sign. But this is an equation. An equation is two equivalent expressions. So the expression on the left, n minus 4, is equal to the expression on the right, which is just negative 10. And our goal here is to figure out what n is equal to in order to make this equation true. Now, you may be able to do this. This is a simple equation. You may be able to do it without a series of complicated steps. But our equations will get pretty complicated. And so I'm going to take some time to go through these notes, which will help us solve really any kind of equation, very complicated. But the ones we'll be doing today are on the simple side. So I want to talk about simplifying versus solving. Simplifying is what we do with an expression just to make it easier and more simple. And solving is what we do when we're looking to find the value of a variable. And when we're simplifying, we just use order of operations when we can. And so we start inside the parentheses and we do exponents, roots, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And in each step, we go left to right. And then we do the same thing outside parentheses. And we do what it says. So if it says to add, we add. And if it says to divide, we divide. But when we're solving, we actually use what are called inverse operations. And we're doing the order of operations backwards. So you'll notice that instead of starting inside parentheses, when we solve, we start outside parentheses. And if you'll notice, our steps are reversed. So we actually start with addition and subtraction, which is our last step when we're simplifying. And then we do multiplication and division, and then we do exponents and roots. And the other big difference is that we don't do what it says. We do the inverse operation. So if in our equation, like in example 1, if you see a minus and we're solving, we're actually going to do the inverse of minus, which is its pair. So the inverse of subtraction is addition, and the inverse of addition is subtraction. So we're going to do the opposite of what it says. And our whole goal here is to figure out the value of n that makes our equation true using a systematic approach. So let's jump in. This says n minus 4 equals negative 10. And what we really want to do is get n alone on one side of the equal sign, and that is called isolating the variable. And so we're outside parentheses, and we start by dealing with addition and subtraction. And I do have subtraction here, minus 4. So if I want to get rid of a minus 4 to get n alone, I do the opposite of minus. And the opposite of minus is plus. So underneath it here, we're just going to do plus 4. And now because this is an equation, I have to keep things balanced. I can add 4 to the left side of the equal sign, but if I want to do that, I also have to add 4 to the right side of the equal sign. So whatever you do on one side of the equal sign, you have to do on the other side. And then we're going to do any math that we can and bring everything else down. So this n, I'm just going to bring it down. Nothing's happening to it. Negative 4 plus 4, if you have 4 bad guys and 4 good guys, they're all gone. It equals 0. They cancel. You always want to bring down the equal sign. And then here we've got 10 bad guys and 4 good guys, so 6 bad guys are going to win. And if we read our line here, it says n equals negative 6. We're actually done. We figured out that to make this equation work, n equals negative 6. And so it's always really important that we do a check. And the way you do a check is you go back to your original equation, n minus 4 equals negative 10, and you replace the n with your answer, negative 6. We're basically evaluating this expression when n equals negative 6. And I'm going to bring everything down, including the right-hand side, and then I'm going to simplify the left, simplify the right, and make sure the two sides are equal. Negative 6 minus 4 is a bad guy meeting. 6 bad guys and 4 more bad guys makes 10 bad guys. Bring down your equal sign. There's nothing to simplify over here, so I'll bring it down. My two sides are equal, so I know I did it right. So that's example 1. See example 2. is going to be negative 2n equals negative 16. Okay, so for this problem, again, I'm trying to find what is the value of n to make the equation true. And again, you may be able to do this in your head, but we're going to go through the inverse operations, the solving steps. We start outside parentheses, and we're not even going to have to worry about that because there are no parentheses here. So we'll start outside, and first we deal with addition and subtraction. And I don't see any addition and subtraction here. Remember, that's a negative 2, not a minus 2. This is multiplication. Negative 2n means negative 2 times n. But I do see multiplication. And so the opposite of multiplication, or the inverse, is division. So if I want to get rid of a times negative 2, I have to divide. The inverse of multiplication is division. And since n is being multiplied by negative 2, I have to divide by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. So what we're left with here is just 1n. And I don't even need the 1 because 1n is just n. We bring down our equal sign. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and we're done. N equals 8. So whatever n is being multiplied by, that's what you're going to divide by. And since now n is totally by itself on one side of the equal sign, I'm finished. We should do a quick check. I'm going to come back to my original equation, and I'm going to replace the n with my answer, which was 8. And you can either use parentheses here or the multiplication dot, it doesn't matter, and you bring everything else down. Simplify the expression on the left. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. Bring down your equal sign. There's nothing to simplify over here, so you just bring it down. And since the expression on the left is equal to the expression on the right, you know you've done it right. 2 more examples. So example 3 here, x divided by 4 equals negative 2. So going through our solving steps, again, there's no parentheses here, so we don't have to worry about this, but I do want to start outside parentheses looking for addition and subtraction. And over here with my variable, I don't see any addition or subtraction. So I move on, multiplication and division. I do see division. Remember, that fraction bar means divide. And so the way I get rid of a divided by 4, the inverse of division is multiplication. So the way I get rid of a divided by 4 is actually multiplying by 4. And there are several ways you can show this. I'm just going to kind of put parentheses around that whole fraction and put a 4 in front. And I got to kind of squeeze it in. But what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, 4 times that guy. Because remember, the opposite of division is multiplication. But if I'm going to multiply by 4 on the left, I have to multiply by 4 on the right as well. So what you've got here is x divided by 4 times 4. These 4's are going to cancel. Similarly, these canceled because negative 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. These cancel. And so what you're left with is just x by itself equals negative 2 times 4. A negative times a positive is a negative, negative 8. And we should check. Okay, we're going to check our answer by coming up to our original problem, x divided by 4 equals negative 2, and we're going to replace the x with negative 8. So negative 8 divided by 4 equals negative 2. I'm going to simplify the left and simplify the right. A negative divided by a positive is a negative, so I've got negative 2 on the left. Bring down your equal sign, bring down your negative 2, and since the left and the right are the same, we know we've done it correct. Okay, we have one more example to do, and that is example 4. 1/4 times n equals 2. And the trick I'm going to show you here is that if you have a fraction times a variable, you can do something that I call the fraction slide. 1/4 times n, you can kind of slide your variable up to the top and you end up with 1n over 4 equals 2. These are the exact same things. And now we can see that really all we have here is multiplication and division. And really, I can ignore that 1 because 1n is the same thing as n. So what I've got here is just n divided by 4 equals 2. So it's really similar to example 3. And now when I go to my steps, outside parentheses, with my variable, there's no addition or subtraction, but there is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply on both sides of the equal sign by 4. So please remember that whatever you do on one side of the equal sign, you have to do on the other. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and so I'm left with just 1n equals 8. And so to check that, I'm going to come back up to my original problem. 1/4 times 8 equals 2. So I'm just replacing the n with 8. And just like we did up there, I can slide that 8 up to the top. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. Simplify the left. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Bring down that 2. And we know it's correct because both sides are equal.